A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Senge Sering. I've come from Gilgit Baltistan, which is in Pakistani occupation. We are talking about human rights issues in Pakistan, occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and Gilgit Baltistan today. I have a great panel with me, but before that, I would like to thank Jammu Kashmir Study Center, United Kingdom, for this great opportunity, and I hope that all of you could join us as soon as possible because we're about to start our program. We will be focusing on the Pakistani side of Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan today. We will be mainly talking about the human rights issues there with a focus on economic development and freedom of expression and speech in today's session. We have a great panel today with us. My first speaker is Sajjad Raja. Sajjad Raja is the chairperson of National Equality Party of Jammu and Kashmir. He has been in the field of activism almost his entire life. His previous associations has been National Awami Party of Jammu and Kashmir. He has been living in the United Kingdom for several years now, and he has been active in the UK as well as back in Muzaffarabad and Mirpur and Punch divisions of Jammu and Kashmir. Good afternoon, Sajjad Raja. Thank you so much for joining us. My second speaker is Gohar Abbas. Gohar Abbas is a renowned journalist from Gilgit Baltistan. When I say journalist, I really mean it because he has a proper degree in journalism. He has worked with renowned European press agencies in the past. Right now, he is living in Texas, and he is going to talk about economic development issues in Gilgit Baltistan today. Gohar Abbas, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really thankful, especially given that you're in Texas. It's probably like 10 or 11 in the morning there. It must be very early for you. So thank you for joining us. Today, we will open with Sajjad Raja. But before that, I would like to say a few things about Pakistan and its presence in Gilgit Baltistan and Mirpur and Muzaffarabad division for the last 72 years after the division of Jammu and Kashmir state and the subsequent occupation. Gilgit Baltistan, Mirpur and Muzaffarabad went in Pakistani occupation. The regions used to be part of the same princely state, but Pakistan, for its own internal administrative convenience, they divided the area into two. Gilgit Baltistan is directly administered from Islamabad, whereas the part of Kashmir and Jammu provinces on the western side, which were subdivided into three divisions of Punch, Mirpur, and Muzaffarabad, have been given a system with internal autonomy and a constitution of their own. And that's what we'll be talking about today. Why do we have two different systems for two areas which belong to the same part of Jammu and Kashmir previously? This is, I think, something that eventually will come up in our discourse in the middle of the program. Yesterday, I was honored to be on panel at an event that was organized in New Delhi by fans. And we talked about the issue of national identity in Pakistan and its relation to economic failure. And today, since we'll be talking about economic failure in POK and Gilgit Baltistan, I think there was something really interesting that came up, and that was that when Pakistan was created, the people who made its policy, the people who were given the charge to govern the country, were mostly people from central India, from UP and Bihar, the Muhajirs, the immigrants who called them more educated, more civilized. They took control of the country. And since after the partition, there was a lot of baggage, emotional baggage that they were carrying, most of the money that they had in the form of national budget was spent on taking care of the strategic affairs of Pakistan. So not a lot of money was spent on creating a basic infrastructure in their new country, which used to be the part of the Baluch and the Pashtun and the Sindhis. So instead of building roads and schools and colleges instead of being thankful to the people of Sindh and Balochistan and Pashtunistan who gave their land and their resources and shared with the Mahajir. Most of the money was spent on the military to take care of their affairs with India. And military has been, in the forefront, receiving the major chunk of national budget since then. So this is one of the main reasons that the people who were given the task to formulate economic policies in the country were the people who are more interested, emotionally more attached to their land in India, and thereby they were more interested in spending money on taking revenge of the partition to satisfy their ego and satisfy their emotional needs. And they have been focusing on Hindu hatred and not focusing on how to share their resources with the people who offered their land and resources and formed a new country that we call Pakistan today. And that effect, that impact has also been seen how Gilgit Baltistan and how people in Mirpur and Muzaffarabad have been treated. That we do not have basic infrastructure in the areas to take care of the local people, especially education and health. But we are more invested in strategic affairs and spending more money on military. So having said that, I would like to come to Sajjad Raja. And recently something happened, and I requested Sajjad Raja to focus his conversation today around that topic. One of our dear friends, Dr. Gulam Abbas Rathore, was martyred. He was killed in his hometown in Kotli a couple of days ago when he's a Canadian citizen, but he had gone back to attend funeral of his father, and unfortunately he was killed in front of his house. And he was one of the renowned activists, and we loved him dearly, and we agreed with his ideas and his take and perception on Jammu Kashmir issue. And he talked about and tried to expose extremism and use of religion in the strategic affairs of Pakistan. And he exposed how the people of Jammu Kashmir have been taken hostage in the name of religion, and how this has impacted the issue of Jammu and Kashmir negatively. So unfortunately, this is something that has happened. It's a big loss for us, and we salute for Dr. Abbas Shaheed for his services. And I would like Sajjad Raja, Professor Sajjad Raja, to please talk about how people like activists, like renowned leaders like Dr. Gulam Abbas, who've been trying to promote our voices and our cause in Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, and Gilgit Baltistan, have been marginalized by the Pakistani policymakers, and what is the situation of freedom of expression and freedom of movement in that part of Jammu and Kashmir. To you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senge. We haven't come out of this shock yet. Dr. Gulam Abbas is no more with us, and his departure, I mean, it's unbelievable. We can't believe that this can happen, but well, this is the situation we are living under. These are the circumstances. You have asked me to express, to tell people what sort of hell we are living in Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir. You particularly mentioned freedom of expression and freedom of assembly and basic human rights. Senge, there are no there isn't any concept of basic human rights in Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir. People have no basic human rights whatsoever. No freedom of expression, no freedom of peaceful assembly, no freedom of association, no economic rights whatsoever, no constitutional rights, and not even any legal right. So that is the situation. About over 4 million people of Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir areas are forced to live in since 1947. I give you just one example. On 16th of March this year in Bagh, district Bagh, we had announced to celebrate the foundation day of state of Jammu and Kashmir, Aksai Batha, because this was the day when Jammu and Amritsar Treaty took place, and union between Jammu and Kashmir was formally announced. So we had organized that program there in Bagh district, Bagh city, and it was just a very simple inside program. It was to be organized in a hotel conference room. We had to cut the cake and just celebrate under the United State of Jammu and Kashmir, which that flag, which was our national flag till 1952. But police came, Pakistani agencies first came to the hotel management, and they asked them to not allow us to do the program, but they refused. And then police came, and police took our organizers who were doing the program, our Secretary General Adil Magre and other colleagues. They were taken in police custody, and then they were later on they were released, and then we held a press conference. So when we asked them that, we are doing an inside program, what is the problem? They said, you can't do program even inside, because you obviously, when you do program, you will put it on social media somewhere, and that's not acceptable. So these arrangements were basically monitored by the local brigade headquarters, which is just close by. It's in outskirts of Bagh city. So that is the situation. Pakistan Army monitors even inside programs in or inside gatherings in Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir, and people are not allowed. People who don't agree to Pakistan, people who disagree to Pakistani policies, people who don't like Pakistani policies, and people who want to express their anger on the treatment which people of Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir are going through, that is not acceptable to Pakistani agencies. And this martyrdom of Dr. Gulam Abbas is a continuation of that policy, and the misery we are living under. Dr. Gulam Abbas is let me take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Gulam Abbas to broader public, to general public who don't know anything about Dr. Gulam Abbas, or who haven't heard about him. Dr. Gulam Abbas was a Canadian citizen. He was living in Canada, and as Senge has said, he had gone. He went on 15th of May to Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir in Kotli to attend his father's funeral. And in last week of May, there was an attempt on his life. And then, it was much before that. There was propaganda on social media and everywhere that Dr. Gulam Abbas has converted to Hinduism. He has left Islam, and people, Pakistani agencies and their mouthpieces, they had started saying that he should be killed and he has no right to live. So these were threats, for many months, about over a year, direct threats were being given to Dr. Gulam Abbas and his family and his brother Aslam Qadri Saab, that they will be killed and they should either denounce their activities and whatever they are doing, or they will be killed. But Dr. Gulam Abbas, he was a brave man, and he didn't bother about his life. He lived for his ideals, his political ideology, and he died for it. And we asked Dr. Gulam Abbas to be careful, because it wasn't wise going to the situation we are living under, our people are living under in Pakistani Occupied Jammu Kashmir.
Yeah.
I advised Dr. Gulam Abbas not to visit Pakistani Occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but he said, my father has passed away and I can't stay back. And he said they can't kill me, and even if he said if they kill me, what will happen? This won't stop my journey, or they won't be able to contain my voice. So even if they kill me, my message will spread everywhere, and that's what I am for, and that's what I'll be doing. So he went. He didn't agree to us. He went there, and then Senge, you said outside his home. He wasn't murdered outside his home. He was sleeping. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 a.m. on 21st of June. He was sleeping in his bedroom, and agencies, obviously, we know it's the people from agencies. They jumped over the main gate. They entered into the house, and Dr. Gulam, they entered into Dr. Gulam Abbas's room, and then while he was asleep, they just shot him. 2 shots were fired, and one of them, or probably both of them, on his cheek, on his left cheek probably, and the bullet went through his brain, and he instantly he passed away. And when the family, within obviously a minute or so, they were sleeping in their own rooms, in other rooms of the house. When they arrived there, hearing those gunshots, he had already passed away, and there was nobody around there. So people had fled away. So this is how he was killed. And the basic reason is that Dr. Gulam Abbas, if you, I don't know whether, Senge, you have watched that TV program on which the interview he gave to JKTV on 19th of June, just one day before his death. And he very clearly, categorically, he denounced Pakistani occupation, and he said that we are living under Pakistani occupation, and this Azadi has no concept here, and Pakistan has basically occupied us, and we need to reunify the state, and we have to throw out Pakistani forces, and we need to get rid of this Pakistani occupation. And this is what he was working for, and that is why he's killed. Same thing happened to Arif Shahid, as you know, Ali Murtaza, and in Baltistan, you know, in Chelas jail, what happened to Sayyid Haider Shah Rizvi. And there are, hundreds of other names. Whoever speaks against Pakistan, whoever disagrees, because Pakistan is not a democratic country. Pakistan is rather a military garrison. So whoever disagrees with Pakistani policies, Pakistan just tries to take their life. Or obviously, it's very difficult for Pakistan to keep people detained in prisons, as they did to Tanveer Ahmad, and they were forced to release him. Even after, first they tried to resist, but then they released him. As they try to stage a drama that, well, it's a bail and blah blah blah, but in fact he is released because of the international pressure. which was exerted on Pakistan. So they know, Pakistan knows that they won't be able to detain political workers. What they resort to now is they just kill them and they try to eliminate them. But these tactics would fail definitely, as they have failed everywhere on the globe. These, I mean, dictators are tyrants, occupant forces. They can never succeed to suppress the voices of people, and they can never suppress people's aspirations for independence and for people's rule, or for their own identity and their political values for which they want to live. So occupant forces can never suppress these voices, and they will never succeed. So Pakistan will never succeed. Pakistan will ultimately fail. It is all now. It lies on our shoulders, and it's our responsibility how we carry on the struggle, and how we take our responsibility, and how do we organize the masses in Pakistani Occupied Jammu Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan. Coming back to, I mean, the words which you used as your question, freedom of
You have about
expression.
5 minutes. Thank you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Freedom of expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, freedom of association, and economic rights, political rights, constitutional rights. We haven't got anything. Now, let me explain. When we say we haven't got any political right, that means we are forced to live under an interim constitution of 1974, which is called Act 74. And that act clearly states that anybody who doesn't believe in accession to Pakistan is not allowed to hold any public office, or is not allowed to contest any type of elections. So anybody who wants to contest the election, they need to fill in a pro forma first, declaring that they believe in the ideology of accession to Pakistan, and they will stay loyal to Pakistan. That is the condition on which people go to elections. So anybody who doesn't believe in that ideology is not allowed to contest elections. And even for government employment, government jobs, people who don't believe in accession to Pakistan, they are not considered for any sort of employment. So that is the situation of political rights we are living under. And then they have implemented this Elections Act 2020, which was in last year in 2020 June. In June, they implemented it, and that has put more restrictions on the political parties and political movements and political activities. And any activity which is against the ideology of Pakistan, I don't know what that ideology is, because I have never been able to understand that ideology. But they say any activity, any political activity, any political gathering which is against the ideology of Pakistan, where people criticize Pakistan, and then they say where people criticize Pakistani institutions, meaning Pakistan Army. So anybody who criticizes Pakistan Army in any meeting, that meeting is declared under the law which they have implemented there, they have enforced there. That gathering is illegal. People attending that meeting are considered to be doing a crime. And
Let's wrap it up in a minute. Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, that is the situation. I will I mean, I would just request the people to rally behind us, and to help us rescue our people from Pakistani clutches. And I would request the international community, human rights activists all over the world, the people who believe in democracy, who believe in peace, and who believe in secularism, I would request them to support us, to support our cause, and to help us rescue our people from Pakistani occupation. Thank you very much, Singh.
Thank you, Professor Sajjad Raja. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution. I would like to invite Gohar Abbas. Gohar Abbas is one of our prominent journalists from Gilgit Baltistan. He originally comes from the Gojal Valley, Gojal subdivision of District Hunza. He has been residing in Texas for some time now, but he has done extensive work on human rights issues. He has written about that. Today, I would like Gohar Abbas to talk about the lack of health facilities in Gilgit Baltistan, because I believe that if you have good health, physical health, which affects your mental health, then it is very directly linked to how you perform well in your schools, in your educational institutions, at your job. The economic well-being of Gilgit Baltistan or any place in the world is directly linked with your physical and mental health. You cannot really perform and show efficiency, proficiency if you do not have basic health facilities like in places like in Gilgit Baltistan, that Gohar Abbas will shed some light on that. And then in the middle, I would request Gohar to talk a little bit about the COVID situation in Gilgit Baltistan, which has restricted our movement as well as our daily functions in over 2 years now. To you, Gohar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senge. To begin with, just like 4 days back, 3 young students from Gojal, which is also known as Upper Hunza, they died in a road accident while they were going to school, and they could not be provided the very first basic aid, and they lost their life. So from there, you can imagine what is the condition of health facilities in Gilgit Baltistan. And just to remind you, a few years back, not long ago, I guess it was last year or 2 years back, there was a video that went viral on social media that in Baltistan, a man asks the then top government official, the chief secretary, that we don't have gynecologists. And instead of addressing his issue, the chief secretary, he asks him, he says, tell me, how much tax do you pay? So Gilgit Baltistan has, whatever the source of income is, either it's from minerals or mountaineering, it never goes to the local people. It never goes to the local assembly. Islamabad has complete monopoly over it. And the so-called budget, I won't call it even a budget, it's a begging bowl, basically, that Islamabad gives to Gilgit Baltistan. And their health and education is somewhere at the very bottom of that, because the budget that they give, Islamabad gives to Gilgit Baltistan, like 45% of it goes back to Islamabad in the form of salaries for paramilitary troops and all that stuff. And then they need to make mint money. So the rest of it, the second big chunk, it goes to sham infrastructure projects like road and all that stuff, where they can get kickbacks and all that thing. And by the end, at the very end, whatever is left goes either to education and health. So there is not a single hospital in Gilgit Baltistan that can treat you, like if you, God forbids, if you have an accident in any part of Gilgit Baltistan, be it Hunza, be it Baltistan, be it Gizr, you don't have any choice. You have to travel to Islamabad or Rawalpindi. And given the time, it takes you 13 to 15 hours to reach there. So most of the people, they lose their lives. And for very small things, they have to go to Karachi, they have to go to Lahore, they have to go to Islamabad because there is no proper medical facility. The region has not a single medical college. From there, you can imagine. And then the seats given to Gilgit Baltistan in medical colleges is 0.3%, which means every year Pakistan gives 4 to 5 seats to the students of Gilgit Baltistan in its medical colleges. And those students, when they complete and then when they go back, they cannot, work in the hospitals there because There are no proper medical facilities. If you are a specialist, if you are a cardiologist, and you want to practice, you can't practice in Gilgit Baltistan. You have to practice elsewhere in Pakistan, where you can do your specializations. So, like, there is a, because of the lack of health facilities, it's causing a brain drain from the region. Local doctors, they would never work there because they cannot proceed, they cannot progress there. There is no way they can progress there, and they don't have the very basic health facilities. So, Sanjay, coming back to your point about uh, condition of health, well, I remember there was another accident. Sorry, I'm counting more of incidents because it gives,
Please.
I believe it gives, a clear picture than me just rambling. There was an accident and 8 people lost their lives. What happens is when when the people are taken to a local hospital, they don't have the stitching things to stitch their wounds. So there is a tailor's home near the hospital. They go to the tailor's house. They bring the thread and all that stuff used to stitch cloth, and they stitch the wounds of the passengers who just had an accident. So this is, where we stand in terms of health in Gilgit Baltistan. So you can imagine when you don't have basic stitch. Okay, what do you expect that they would have anything else if you have a bigger health issue, like you have heart issue or any other thing, and so, especially with women and children. uh, I guess more than 60%, to be, I don't know the exact figure, but more than 60% of the hospitals in Gilgit Baltistan, they don't have gynecologists. That's something that's really important in that part of the region. More than 90% of the hospital, they don't have child specialists. If you want to go to a child specialist, right now there are 4 child specialists in the whole of Gilgit Baltistan. So if you are lucky enough that you are in Gilgit, well, you can go to a child specialist or a gynecologist who would then refer you to Islamabad because they don't have the facilities there. But if you are in Ghizar, if you live in Baltistan, in Khapulu, if you live in somewhere in Gojal, in some remote areas like Chapursan and Shimshal, they don't even have like basic health facilities where women can deliver babies. That's a very basic requirement. And unfortunately, there has been no research or no work to dig on the uh, child mortality rate and maternal mortality rate in the region, because I believe it's too high when you come to the Amar district, or when you go to the far-flung areas like Shimshal and Chapursan. They don't have done any research, and yes, women lose their life while giving birth. That's something very much normal. And now coming to the point, why do we have this thing? Because the locals, they don't make their budget. They request for money that's given by Islamabad to Gilgit Baltistan, and then even the so-called local representatives, they have no say in the budget. It depends on what the bureaucracy decides. So the bureaucracy, they will take out their own salaries, like the salaries of paramilitary troops and non-local bureaucracy posted in the region, and then they will go for projects where they can, get side money, like they will go for infrastructure, and at the very end, whatever is left will go to health. So yes, uh, the local people, the local assembly, it has no say in its own budget, that where the budget should go. And then bureaucrats, non-local bureaucrats from Pakistan, they control everything. So as long as Gilgit Baltistan has no say in its own budget, as long as Gilgit Baltistan has no say over no say over its own resources, I think this issue is not gonna go anywhere. And coming to the Sanjay, you asked about COVID. Well, I have seen, because the only vaccine there was the one that was donated by China. And people are still getting COVID who have had those shots. And the border, because of COVID, the border with China, it's closed. It has been almost 2 years that the border has been closed. And the local traders, they requested the Chinese authorities from Xinjiang to open the border. And the reply was really interesting. The officials from Xinjiang, they said, we cannot open the border because of COVID. And the local traders, they said, everyone has been vaccinated because China donated all the vaccines. And the Chinese officials, they said, yeah, that's why we are not opening the border, because it was Chinese vaccine. It's not clear. There is no guarantee. So yes,
That's interesting.
the other, like AstraZeneca and Pfizer, not a single dose has gone to Gilgit Baltistan. And the only vaccine available there is the Chinese vaccine, which the Chinese officials themselves, they doubt it. They are not opening the border just because they say that they are of the view that because you have only Chinese vaccine, we cannot open the border. And yes, the business has been affected. Yes, Senge.
Thank you so much. I think we have a lot on our plate right now. I think we'll go back to Professor Sajjad Raja. Professor Sajjad Raja, before I wanted you to talk a little bit about, the election in Mirpur and Muzaffarabad divisions that are coming in the next couple of weeks. But before that, I have an interesting, this the query, and that is, you both mentioned a lot about human rights issues in Gilgit Baltistan, Mirpur, Muzaffarabad areas. And when it comes to the United Nations, because United Nations says Gilgit Baltistan, Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, these are disputed areas. But when it comes to a reaction from or response from United Nations, we almost see a complete silence from the United Nations. Whereas when something happens in the Kashmir Valley, for instance, and there's a lot more response from them. So what is this disparity? Why is there so much discrimination? Why is that the United Nations does not care about Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, and Gilgit Baltistan? You have seen, all of our political activists, they have like Schedule 4 and other charges against them, and for no reason, for just talking about basic human rights, like what Gohar is trying to do right now. If he was in Gilgit right now, and if he had made this presentation, they would have charged him for Schedule 4. But the United Nations is completely silent on Gilgit Baltistan, Mirpur, and Muzaffarabad, whereas in Kashmir Valley, you see there's a lot more, attention there. Is it because, we have failed, as activists have failed to communicate to the United Nations? Like, what is your take on it?
Thank you, Senge. Yeah, it is a multi-dimensional problem, actually. There is no doubt we have failed as political activists. We have failed to properly shoulder our responsibilities and to organize our activities in a way that the international community can stand with us. That is one reason. Another reason is basically Western powers' own interests. It is, geopolitical situation, and I don't want to go into detail because it is a very lengthy topic, and if we start discussing those things and we don't conclude them, then obviously there is no point. But they want to contain India on one side, they want to please Pakistan on one side, then they have their own plans for China, and they want to deal with China. Basically, for Western powers, human rights, and when I say Western powers, it's Western governments. For them, human rights of people in Southeast Asia or anywhere come after their own national interests. They look at their national interests first, and then they talk about anything else. So that is another dimension of the problem. And then lack of communication, basically, and suppression, which our people are going through, because as you know, our people don't have internet facility. They don't have facility to obtain any independent information. because of lack of internet and lack of communication facilities. So I mean, that is another problem, because our people in the first place, first, I mean, they don't
let me connect this topic to the next topic that I would like you to throw a little light on. How important is the election that we have in
yeah.
Mirpur and Muzaffarabad for the United Nations and international community? What is the legitimacy? How does the international community look at the election that is about to happen?
Senge, I won't call it elections. These are selections, basically. So every 5 years, there were times when there were not even selections being done, and it was just somebody was picked by Pakistan, and then he was installed in POJK, and same things used to happen in Gilgit Baltistan. But for last a couple of decades now, they have selection process in implemented there. They have organized a selection process. These are just selections. So selections are taking place on 25th of July this year as well in POJK, Pakistani Occupied Areas. And as everybody knows, government in Muzaffarabad is basically installed by Pakistan, and nobody without Pakistani consent and Pakistani understanding, nobody can take any sort of responsibility in Muzaffarabad and Gilgit. So even, I mean, this is, you can understand, and people can understand how dire the circumstances are, how grave the situation is, that our prime minister, so-called prime minister of so-called Azad Kashmir, POJK, Raja Farooq Haider Khan, is campaigning against the Pakistani interference, and he is openly saying that Pakistan is trying to influence the people here in POJK, and Pakistan is Pakistan is distributing money in the constituencies, and Pakistan is directly selecting people, and then Pakistan is directly approaching people through different institutions. Pakistan is forcing people to vote, I mean, so-called in so-called elections. Pakistan is forcing people to vote for those candidates which Pakistani agencies have cleared. So that is the situation. There is no concept of elections.
Let me come to Gohar about this issue. Gohar, we just had election a few months ago in Gilgit Baltistan, and it seems like the process of electioneering in Gilgit Baltistan and the way they choose the MLAs is not very different from Mirpur and Muzaffarabad. How much local government has control over CPAC? I think CPAC is an extremely important project. It comes through Gohar, where you were born and raised. It comes from your valley. That's the gateway to Gilgit Baltistan and rest of Pakistan. How much control and authority the government in Gilgit Baltistan have on CPAC?
Thank you, Senge. I don't know how to answer where to start with, but the thing is, the local government of Gilgit Baltistan, they cannot control like which non-local DC should be posted in which particular district, and how would you expect them to control what they get in CPAC? Well, the only better that the Gilgit Baltistan Legislative Assembly, it has got no legislative powers. The maximum they can do is they can transfer local bureaucrats, and they cannot do anything about non-local bureaucrats. If you remember, there was a not even deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner from Lahore, who slapped a member of the Gilgit Baltistan Legislative Assembly inside the Legislative Assembly building, and then the member had to apologize from that assistant commissioner. So asking that if that particular assembly or those members who are selected for that assembly, they got any say over CPAC, well, they don't have anything. Just to give you one example, my own personal land, I lost half of it to CPAC's pilot project, the road that's coming through. It has been almost 6 years. I have not been paid my compensation, my land compensation. And the land compensation is 20 times less than the market rate that I will sell my own personal land for right now. So what happens is I lose half of my personal land to CPAC, and on top of that, I am not allowed to build anything on the rest of the land because because the deputy commissioner or the government officials, they have issued directives that this project might be expanded. So the only thing I am getting from CPAC is I am losing my land. I am not being paid for that. And whatever land is left for me, I cannot build anything on that.
Now, this
2
is an
years back.
important issue, Gohar, that you brought about the land acquisition, right? I mean, we have seen that they're acquiring land in Makbuntas, they're acquiring land in Diamir, and in Gojal and in Sakwar, Manawar areas. What is the procedure like? Are the local peoples are involved in decision making? Or do they go and ask them like what are their needs, and like how much of the CPAC do you think will benefit the local people once it's being built?
Well, the process of land acquisition, thanks for bringing up that topic. There is no such process. Nothing exists. The thing is, one day you will get a notification from the deputy commissioner's office or from the assistant commissioner's office saying that this particular land, the government wants it, and you cannot resist it. And if you go and ask why do they want it, and the thing is, they will say because of the national interest, they are building security for CPAC or whatever. And talking against CPAC in Gilgit Baltistan or talking against the army is just like committing blasphemy. You don't have any
Yeah.
choice. You cannot do anything. And the worst part is, unlike other parts of Pakistan, in Gilgit Baltistan, people have pastures, that is community owned land. The mountain belong to the locals. And the last government of Gilgit Baltistan, they passed a legislation that it will give the bureaucracy, not the local government, the bureaucracy, the complete right to occupy or to encroach on or to take over land, that community owned land from the locals. We have seen that Pakistan Air Force was grabbing land in Skardo. In Baltistan, people were resisting it. But in many other parts of the region, the local people cannot resist it. Let's not go far like Trichapursan or Shemshal or far-flung areas of Baltistan or Diamar. Right in Gilgit city, there was a clash between uniformed army officer and women, the local women, because they were trying to take over their land. And the video
Yeah.
went viral on social media. So in Gilgit Baltistan, there is no such process that to acquire any land. Like one day, the force commander, who is the army top army official deputed in the region, if he likes any land, the locals pray that the locals pray that that guy should not visit their village or that guy should stay away because he visits a village, he likes a land, he comes back, and the next day a notification would be issued. The local people will get a notification from the government saying the government needs this land for national security. It's in the national security interest or for CPAC, and the locals cannot get anything out of it.
Dr. Professor Raja, I think this is linked to a recent issue that happened in, I think, Muzaffarabad district, where the Pakistani military was trying to acquire some land very important from the purpose of tourism, and local people clashed there. It seems like even though the so-called AJK has its own constitution, but that constitution and the people who work under the local administration have no authority to control their land. Is there any demographic changes happening in POK right now?
Yeah, Senge, the Pakistani agencies have been busy for many years now. I would say many decades. They have settled people from KPK and Punjab in Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and those people have been issued with state subjects. And these people now, their children, they go into employment as well, and these people claim to be Jammu and Kashmir nationals, Jammu and Kashmir state subjects. And when people ask them which area you are from, and they say we are from Indian occupied Kashmir, we are from Kapwara, we are from Baramulla, and this has been on social media. Many examples have been people and voter lists people have put on social media, and they have asked that what's this happening, but there is nobody to address their problems or their concerns, because this is our administration, district administration, police and district management, they directly work under Pakistani army officers, and whatever Pakistani army officers want, our district management is they are forced to do it otherwise, because chief secretary, IGP, auditor general, and all important civil bureaucrats, they come from Pakistan. They are Pakistani citizens. So whole of our civil machinery, our civil service, that works directly under Pakistani officers, and Pakistani officers can transfer them. They can even they can terminate their service. So that is the situation which is happening there in many cities, like in Dadial, particularly those areas where from where people have moved to United Kingdom, and many people have moved to America. In those areas, particularly like Dadial, Mirpur city, Kotli, Quirata, and these areas, it was in that happened in I remember in Rawalakot as well. Rawalakot city was taken over by Pathans from KPK, and then local people, they protested against them, and there was a big clash, and then those people, some of them were sent back, and some of them were relocated to other places, to small towns. So almost all small towns and businesses in those small towns, trade is controlled by these non-locals from KPK and Punjab, and they have settled now. Their children have born in Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They speak our language. Their accent is just like, because they are born there, they go to the schools, they play with those children, and they are brought up there. So nobody can
These
recognize from
settlers
outside.
that we are talking about, do they help in promoting terrorism? Because as I believe, in the name of promoting the cause for Kashmir issue, Pakistan has used this land to promote Islamic terrorism for a very long time. So do these settlers help with promoting terrorism in the area?
These settlers directly stand for Pakistan, and they work openly, they work with Pakistani agencies. I give you example. When Tanveer Ahmed was arrested, Tanveer Ahmed took off Pakistani flag from a chowk, from a square in Dadial city. Dadial that is the main commercial hub of Dadial. When he took off that flag, no local person, nobody from Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir, or no state subject objected to it, and nobody had any problem. It was a Pakhtun settler there. who called police, who reported to police, and then police came, and then that settler was with police, and they dragged Tanveer Ahmed, and they put him in the police vehicle when they arrested him. So these settlers directly, they work with agencies, they work with police, and they try to, and they even on social media they give us threats, open threats they give us, that they will kill us, they will kill our families, and they will sort us out, and blah blah blah, things like that. So these settlers, and when they are asked, from which areas you are, or which tribe you belong to, or which family, and they say we have come from Indian, we have come from Kashmir Valley. So this is what's happening. Sometimes our government officials, some of our government officials, they take notice of these things as well. These things are discussed at some level, but because the administration is completely and totally controlled by Pakistan, so they bury them then under the files, and nothing is done. So this is what's happening to our people. And this is again multidimensional. People can't go into elections because of the ordinances and because of the law which they have enforced there. That is the first problem. And then people are directly selected by the agencies. They are interviewed, all candidates, they are directly interviewed by Pakistani agencies, and only those people can go into elections who are cleared by the agencies. That is second problem. And then the third problem is, anybody who remains or somehow filters through these processes. If somehow somebody manages to go into elections, or then directly Pakistani agencies and Pakistani institutions, they distribute the money. Like this Tanveer Ilyas is, they have launched Tanveer Ilyas now, and if you go on social media, if you scroll down, you will find that everybody is telling their stories, that money is being distributed to people to buy votes.
Gohar, I'm going to come to you because we have 4 minutes left, and I think we will shut down after that. Professor Raja, he talked about money. Recently, I think the Imran Khan government has announced a huge amount of money, I think 300 some million rupees, that will be allocated to Gilgit Baltistan. These announcements have been made in the past. What is the reality behind it? How much of that money will the locals get? And what is the distribution? Do you have any sense of how that money will be redistributed to locals?
Sange, in the past also, governments in Islamabad, they have made big announcements, but it's never materialized. When a politician like Imran Khan, fine, he's a politician, he's the prime minister, but again, it has to go through the bureaucracy. And I think, most of the people who won the election, who are in the assembly, they are a big majority of them are those people who, who went to election as independent candidates. And and then later they joined PTI. So he has announced the money, but that's it. There has been, the budget that they were supposed to present, the local budget in the local assembly, which has not been presented yet. And the announcements, like Nawaz Sharif has made a lot of announcements, Zardari made really big announcements, but none of it was ever materialized. And yes, he announced huge money, but the thing is, they have not announced any mechanism, and we will have to see when the budget will be presented that, okay, fine, if in reality the money goes there. And as I told you before, that the paramilitary troops from Pakistan, FC, and other rangers, they are being posted in Gilgit Baltistan, and a big amount of that money, it goes to their salaries, because the federation, the federal does not pay their salaries, and their salaries has to be paid by the local government of Gilgit Baltistan. So I would see it in that way, because during Imran Khan's term, a lot of a big number of non-local paramilitary troops have been posted in Gilgit Baltistan for whatever reason, although we have Gilgit Baltistan Scout and the local police. So I think a big amount of that budget, it will go back for their salaries, and
We
we'll have to
just
see.
heard Nawaz Naji. He's one of our MLAs. He talked about, he actually had a lot of argument with other members, especially the chief minister, because they're not getting any budget. What is going on here? Because Nawaz Naji, he has some valid points that I think we need to discuss. Why is Rizal being completely discarded out of the total proportion that is given to different districts? Number one. Secondly, why he's saying that why are the bureaucrats making these decisions? What is the role of the legislative assembly, please?
Thank you, Sange. As you know, in Rizal, the the military establishment with the local bureaucracy, they tried their level best. They tried their level best to stop Nawaz Khan Naji from winning the local election. But he won the local elections for the third consecutive terms. And the local administration, especially the military based in Gilgit Baltistan, the military bureaucracy, they see Rizal as a threat. Nawaz Khan Naji has a massive following among the youth. And the youth of Rizal, they are, thanks to Nawaz Khan Naji, that they are politically, I'm not degrading other youth of the other region, but politically they are more mature, politically they are more aware, and they are, more vibrant than other districts. And this is what the local I want, because the chief minister has honestly no any powers. He got no role, nothing. He just follows the orders from the military establishment that's passed to him through the FCNA. So Rizal is deliberately being ignored because Rizal opted, the youth of Rizal, the people of Rizal, they chose their own leader, Nawaz Khan Naji, instead of anyone from the federal parties like PTI or PMLN or PPP. And it has been, it's not the first time. It has been a while since the military bureaucracy, they see Rizal as a threat. And this is, I guess, their arm twisting tactics. That if you vote for a nationalist leader, you are not gonna get anything. You are not gonna get the budget. You are not going to get any money. You are not going to get any development funds. So this is just an arm
So
twisting tactic.
just like in Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, money is being used to dictate people and move them in a certain direction that suits the establishment's point of view in Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan. And with that, we are probably 2 minutes over. But thank you so much. I think this was our first program, and we would like to continue on the same trend, talking about our two separate yet united by its past affiliation with Jammu and Kashmir, two separate regions of POK and Gilgit Baltistan, and we will continue to compare the situation in both areas and how it impacts local people. Thank you so much once again, Professor Raja, Gohar Abbas. I will conclude here. Thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.